Hey folks, oh shit, that's not good. Not that you can see that, but it's time for our weekly update again on YouTube. I'm doing this, I guess it's my fourth week in a row, and I honestly have been thinking about this all week. Didn't really know what I was going to talk about. I had no real direction other than to say, I guess I'll give you a quick update first. About 2 weeks ago, I turned in a story to the folks at City Lights Press, which formerly was known as Separated Self, and it's actually the second book in the Knights of Lust series. And the funny thing about that is that Red Sage owns the first book, and they're not giving me the rights back. I'm not asking for them, honestly, either, to be fair about it, because that's one of the publishers in my earlier part of my career, about 7 years ago or so, gave me some street credit as a romance author because they were still at the time very much a predominant romance publisher. So I left it there when I thought about submitting this to City Lights. Second thing about that is that I reworked the story a little bit so that Joseph can sort of stand alone, and if you read Endangered, it'll make more sense, but if you don't go back and read Endangered, it won't throw you completely until I start the second book, which is actually already finished. I just have to rewrite the ever-loving hell out of it, simply because in the initial draft, the way that I was going to set the series up was Joseph goes into the first book, an anti-hero, and finds himself a primary lover and her girlfriend. And then the second book was actually a shorter story, and Joseph would have gotten a primary wolf lover and a primary vampire lover and the vampire lover's girlfriend. In the third book, which was actually the second full-length book, you see how confusing this is and why I'm breaking things up? In the second full-length novel, Istvan and Dave come along for the ride from Hungary, and Istvan and Isabella, or Livia's girlfriend, fall in love, and I end up breaking up that whole huge thing. And I was kind of going for sort of Laurel K. Hamilton, big huge puppy pile thing, but then I thought no, but then I thought maybe why not, except that Red Sage said no, and I was in the middle of trying to finish up the Opeth Pack series at the time, so I shelved it for a while, and the writing is still decent, but there's a lot of kinks to work out. Luckily, the folks at City Lights are willing to take my older stuff, little polished job on them, and go from there. Which I guess brings me to an interesting point. On Facebook not too long ago, and I forgot who it was, but one of my followers had actually asked the question. I don't know, one of my friends, it might have been Rebecca Hamilton. Don't quote me on that. Point is, the question was asked, if you get your backlist titles and the rights reverted to you, do you clean them up and ship them out to the publisher? The answer is yes and no. This is ginkgo tea, so it's not as much caffeine, so I won't be super wired today. The answer is yes, because on the one level, you don't want to go through every little detail and rewrite the story. You do want to go back in and run spell check. You do want to probably go in there and make a quick cursory look, no more than an hour or two, depending on the length of the story, and just make sure everything is in its proper place. Maybe you update the dedication or you update the author's notes, but that's all you do. And then you fire it off to wherever it's going, or you self-publish it with a note that says this was previously published elsewhere and yada yada yada. No, because honestly, you should be working on new material. I would say yes initially to this, only under the guise of the fact that one of my previous publishers that I still work with today and I were talking, and she's been in the industry a very long time, so we take a piece, a story, whether it's a short or a novel or this or that, and literally bleed that thing dry. I've had several short stories that were published way back in the day when I was first starting out, and they would go into different magazines, different e-zines, different avenues, and make me 10, 20, 30, sometimes 50, rarely 50, but sometimes $50 per publication, and then after 90 days or so, the credits expired, but the publication date expired, and I get the rights back. So I'm like, okay, shoot this here. Okay, shoot that there, shoot this here. This story has been to 10 different places. That's 10 different new audiences who have seen me. A little bit of crossover, but also been paid 10 different times. Now, after you do this enough, a certain word count comes up. You got a collection of shorts, in this case. You do this with longer length novels, and if there's a central theme running throughout the novels, then you got a box set. But that's what we did. Would I advise it today? Depends. I can go back 2 years ago. I had more free time than I do now, and I could do that hands down, no problem. I could take a story like what I'm working on with Separated Self. The new title, by the way, is what the hell is the new title? We just did this. Okay, Zoom text is not wanting to be helpful today, which it almost never is after it's been a while. Okay, so Separated Self has actually been retitled An Alpha Torn, and I'll talk about that in a different video closer to when the book's been released. But anyway, when I had more free time, I would do this. I'd go back through older work, polish it up, and fire it off, and either get picked up or it wouldn't. This last round with the folks at City Lights, they wanted as much of my backlist as possible under the guise that they can actually make money off of the number of titles and then also their own acumen, business acumen, which I love. I'm stoked about that. They have a couple of my older stories, and the results have just been this backlist of mine and my alternate name just build like that. It's been great. I love those guys over there. So there's that. But if you're a new author and you're trying to find your feet and you've got a couple titles out and they were published at some point or you self-published them, don't go back and rework them and put it out again. Don't bother. Continue to build your new audience. That's what I would do. So that should answer that question in full detail. What else? I don't know. Kitchen's almost clean. And I may have actually acquired a subscription to a particular magazine that will not be shown here, but you can get the gist of it. Accidental, of course. My mailbox had this in it a few weeks ago, and I may get in trouble for that little snippet too, but they're not going to come after me. They're dead in the water anyway, as far as I'm concerned. By the way, yes, they put the nudity back in, doubled it up. The content, I like the content in the 90s better, personally. That's just my opinion, but whatever. I don't know what else I got. More cigars, more bourbon, more this, more that. You guys got questions? Why don't you drop a line below here in the YouTube comments section, and we'll do a Q&A one of these afternoons. I'll set it up for that. Drop it on the Facebook page. But that's all for this week. Remember to like and subscribe to the page, share it with your friends, and understand that if I didn't do this now, Flux would have kicked on, and you can't see it right now, but I have a screen thing. Maybe I'll talk about this later too. I have a section of tips and tricks that are just little small hacks that help with the writing process in all avenues, not just the actual word count and craft and whatnot, but my eyes. A couple of you have probably noticed when I was doing the FaceTime live thing how I dig into the camera close to read comments, and you see my hair is natural. This is my natural color. But that being said, I'm visually impaired. On top of that, I keep late weird hours, so I've got a number of tools and tricks that I've learned from, people like Tim Ferriss that I'll share with you guys probably in the next video that help me win the day, win the night, just win. They just help you win and improve things overall. So until then, I will see you guys in either a week or catch me tomorrow night on Facebook Live. Cheers.